Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing Sober. We are back to the old format. We're now sitting, we are back to the old format, but instead of bringing artists into the studio where we used to have it or at Espacio where we used to have it, now I'm visiting artists and seeing their spaces. And this is really cool to be here. We're here today with Andy Rios and down at 111th Street, South Central.
Yeah, South Central representing.
Yeah, it's actually a beautiful neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, it's nice.
Just took the train, got off on Watts, and rode into here, and it's I would love to live in this neighborhood, and this is a really cute house too. I mean, you have it set up nicely with plants outside, and you've turned this little space into your own studio.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is.
So let's actually start by getting to know you, like we always do on this podcast. We start with getting to know like where were you born and where you grew up, and let's go back to the early years and tell us all a little bit about yourself, because I only met you one time before this. I mean, unless some other times we met at other art shows and all that, but recently bumped into you at a workshop with Elmer.
Yep.
And really dug your work and followed you and just like have been seeing all the things that you've been posting, and you have a really beautiful set of images on your Instagram,
thank you.
You're working, man, and it's beautiful, and being in your studio is dope. You work a lot. I love seeing that. So, but tell us about you then.
Yeah, my name is Andy Rios. I also am known through my Instagram, LoveYoDreams.
LoveYoDreams.
Yeah, which I think I started choosing that name because it's better than like just putting my name, Andy Rios. I think it's like, and I signed my murals with that because it's like more of a message. And I think if like a youngster was to see it, they would, like, it's like a message. And I'm just like, yo, love your dreams.
It already sends them, just by reading the signature. It gives them a little,
it's kind of like a little message. But yeah, I'm from born and raised in LA, born in White Memorial, grew up in K-Town as a little kid, and then South Central. But I was part of the magnet program, so I went to school in the Valley.
Okay.
So I have like South Central, like the streets of South Central of LA just in general, and then like this whole Valley kind of like culture that's way different than South Central, especially at that time, I grew up in LA, and
did you go to school at Ice Cube?
I did.
Just kidding.
But I was definitely listening to Ice Cube as a little kid. And
what year were you born?
I'm born in 81.
Okay.
So I was like 12 years old when like the riots were happening, or like 11.
Yeah.
And so I'm like a product of just that too, like just living in South Central, just jumping on the roof of our house and just doing a 360 and just seeing just smoke come from everywhere. And experiencing the riots in '92 and because at that time I lived on like really close to Florence and Normandy. Like I was like
there, the epicenter.
I was like, our house was on Menlo, which is like just east of Vermont, but we were like right there like Florence, and so we were there like pretty much when they like kind of started popping off. Like we were really close to it.
Do you have any stories of like running out there? Or
no, because
getting yelled at for going out?
Well, yeah, because we were like,
kids.
I was like 11, and my brother was 1 year younger than I am, but I think with my neighbor friends, we would all hop on the roof and maybe try to be like, yo, let's go see what's up. But at that time, my mom is a single parent. And she's always been, but she definitely kind of had a close eye on us. She was like, don't stay your ass here. Don't go out. You never know what's going to happen. And I could definitely understand her concern.
I was actually working in Koreatown when that happened.
Oh, okay.
And so I was able to go up on the top of the buildings. I was working at on Wilshire and Mariposa.
Yeah.
And so the building there, I was able to go on top and look around, and everything was on fire.
Yeah.
And when we were leaving, like They just told us to go home. We were leaving. There was gunshots. There was people running around.
Oh,
and
good
shit.
luck.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty much that.
Yeah. I mean, eventually it like kind of trickled down all the way there, right?
Yeah,
You know,
down in East LA, a little bit.
and
it was very little in East LA though. It wasn't like crazy.
And these are just like always like injustices that just kind of just constantly happen, you know, like and yeah, people, you know, like they want to fight for these things and but I don't know, sometimes I don't necessarily agree the way like think people do it, you know, and because they're obviously destroying their own communities.
Yeah. But it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the oil sometimes, you know. That's what I always say. I always say thank those protesters for like the little bit of rights that we do have, because if people don't do that shit, they wouldn't give us shit, you know?
Yeah.
If there was nobody fighting for those little tiny things, then they won't give us anything. I mean, as you see right now, like they're trying to strip everything away from us. So it's like, it's going to bubble. If this shit keeps going like this, it's going to definitely bubble, but that's just my opinion.
But like I said, so I'm a product of LA pretty much, and but also like the Valley, and then that's like because of the Valley. I mean, I'm not gonna say just because of the Valley.
What Valley?
So I went to school at El Camino in the Woodland Hills.
Yeah.
But around the same time, that's when I got introduced to just like a whole different perspective on like just like music that maybe people in South Central aren't necessarily listening to, especially at that time that we didn't have internet, so everything was. Of course. Like, I mean, I was
every music group was divided. Like you hung out with people that listened to the music that you listened to.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Right?
Yeah, and well, because I got into skating too really young, you know, like early, you know, like young, and developed like my skills as a skater, like pretty quick, you know. So I was about it. I used to skate with pros, like when I was younger, and so I think when you're surrounded with like a group of talented people, you kind of like all of that rubs off, you know, on you.
Do you still skate?
No, I mean I'll push, but I'm not gonna.
Trying to do tricks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, like throw my body downstairs for no reason, you know. like I don't know. I think I have.
I'm 50 and I took a fall recently, and I was like very fortunate. I found the bike with an accident and just flew, landed, rolled, got some bruises, some pretty bad bruises, but it's scary. I'm 50, so it's like I'm lucky I didn't hit my head. But anyways, that's cool. I didn't know you were a skater. I never, like, I grew up with skateboards, but before kids are doing tricks. We had skateboards, but just to go to the movies. Our skateboards were like, we had one guy that actually would spend his summers with his dad in Mission Viejo, and so he would learn tricks, and he'd come back and he'd teach us some tricks. But none of us really like
stand on his hands.
That's his famous trick.
Oh,
a handstand going down the hill.
The whole way. Right?
Yeah, of course. That was the old school type shit.
So you know, like I grew up with that, and but always been into art. I mean, since elementary, I always like drawing, and it's kind of been like part of like my thing, you know. Let me put it outside. So like always been into drawing since I was like a kid, you know. Like obviously, just like everybody else, just kind of copying cartoons and you know, or when I would go to the dentist, they'd go with a stack of magazines, you know, and I remember flipping through the Sports Illustrated magazine once, and there was these caricatures, but like I've never seen before. That's like the first time I've seen like a caricature rendered, and where it was mind blowing. I was like, what the, like, this is amazing. Like I want to.
In pencil or color? Or?
Yeah, it was like a full color, like airbrush, color pens, maybe some color pencil, like Juice Struzan type kind of illustration, and I was like, I ripped the page. I was like, dude, I'm taking this. This is mine, and so then I just kind of became like I was obsessed with this image that I knew that came from hands, because you could easily tell like all the strokes and just like the I'm not gonna say there were
You can't
imperfections.
kind of deconstruct it in your
Yeah,
own
yeah,
head.
exactly.
And you're like, I think I can do this. Maybe.
Yeah. So that kind of became a big part of like who I am, is like to see things and to try to figure them out.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, like I didn't go to art school, and so it's just like it's kind of part, like I'll research those things and try to understand maybe how to get there. Like I would like go to the library and read books.
How old were you when you ripped that page out of that magazine?
I must have been probably like, I don't know, like 8 or something. Yeah.
So then, in like middle school and high school, did you take classes, art classes?
So
I remember like being the guy that they would pick to, like, oh, can you draw the classroom drawing, whatever type shit.
So like I said, I went to school in El Camino. I went to elementary here in South Central, but we got the counselor suggested that my brother go into this program, which is the magnet program, because I don't know, I think we showed some type of potential or something, and so they were like, yeah, like, you know, like talk to my mom. They were like, you know, like bust your kids, wake them up earlier. He was like, I don't know, like, but yeah, like the funny thing is that no, I didn't take any. I didn't have any art classes in high school because I always wanted to, but they would always get filled up.
Yeah.
And so then I would just be like take the classes that nobody wanted to take. But eventually are like the classes that ultimately became a big part of like my current like life as a graphic designer and the person that works in the computer, which were like typing classes, calligraphy class. Like, you know, I mean, calligraphy class was cool, but like those are like classes that at that time I was like, man, I don't want to do this. It's like, I was just like, who wants to type? You didn't
realize that you were picking up a skill.
Yeah, exactly. You
something
know?
that would help you.
Yeah, and so now it's just like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't have to look at the keyboard. I'm just like all working commands, like, but yeah, and then it wasn't, but the funny thing is that all the art teachers in my high school knew that I was about this person, Andy, and but he was just never in any of the classes because they were just, they would get filled up quick.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so finally my senior year, because I did in high school, I thought it would, like, I didn't care. And so I like all night, like I flunked all of ninth grade, and I had a meeting with the counselor and my mom. They're like, you got to make up all your classes or you're going to get left back. And so then I did. I went to night school. So after school I would stay like pretty much every day to make up all my credits, summer school. And by that point, when I got the transition between 11th and my senior year, I was like, well, I've done this this whole time. I'm just gonna take, but I already had caught up. So I was like, I'm gonna take senior classes in summer school before, like that way I don't have to take classes.
Out of it,
yeah. So
you caught up and then kept going to get ahead.
Yeah, I actually got way more credits than most people, and so my senior year, that's when I finally kind of had like an art class, but like I said, everybody already knew me, and so they the teachers they're like, oh, you're Andy, like everybody's been talking about, and so pretty much the whole year I just painted a mural, like in the classroom, and then
what were you just to go back a little bit, what were you drawing in those years before that?
Well,
like why would they notice you? What were you drawing? What were you doing?
Because so like I said, like, I picked up that illustrated like illustration, for that article, and so I started kind of developing like these, like doing these characters that were kind of closely related to graffiti, but also looking at artists like at that time I already kind of knew about Boris Vallejo, Salvador Dali, and so I was like, that was my interest, like, especially in the Valley, there were all these kids, like, for example, I had my friend David, his dad was an illustrator for Hanna-Barbera, and so like as friends in high school, like because he was also a skater, we would like sometimes spend the night at his house and skate the Valley, and then he would do the same, come to LA and spend the night at our house, and then we would skate LA. But his dad was, like I said, an illustrator, a storyboard artist for Hanna-Barbera, and so when we would go visit him, sometimes he would have his scripts in the kitchen table, and I would be like, oh my God, like. And I kind of obviously not fuck with his stuff, but like definitely flip to
you get to
pages.
see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, like a person, an artist can make a living off of this, and it kind of just reassured it, like that I could do this as a living and be like this like artist, but most importantly, just kind of be passionate about like what your interests are, and. But yeah, and so like a lot of the things I were drawing were like caricatures, but like I said, like also like Boris Vallejo, and Frazetta, where they were like a little bit more kind of like on the realistic side, like they're like more human features that are more proportionate, and so then I got into that too, like just kind of copying images on like on paper and telling myself that I could do it, and then eventually like I did. I think I just maybe just convinced myself that I could, but it was just like something that I just did. And
so then you finally got accepted into the art classes, and you painted a mural in your first year at the school.
Yeah, so I painted a mural, but then because I think by this point, like I had already gotten a couple of scholarships. Like I won an award prize from Coca-Cola, a program that was through Disney called the Rhyming Program, and then Art Center High, I got a scholarship from that too. So, like I think like like the teachers knew that I was like really like I guess. Like I was like accomplishing like these goals and getting these opportunities. Oh, I was also an apprentice at Mocha. I applied for an apprenticeship at Mocha, and so like all of this was like within my senior year. Yeah. And so because I didn't have that many classes in my high school, I think I had like maybe 2 or something, and then the art class. Like I had a lot of time for me. You
basically just surrounded yourself with art.
Yeah, exactly.
All times, right?
Yeah.
All times of the day, you were volunteering and painting and taking classes.
Yeah, so I mean, but so it became kind of part of my my life.
Who you are, yeah.
Yeah, and but I was also part of like youth and like youth programs. So because my mom worked. Like at one point, like 2 jobs, at one point, and so we needed like a space to be once we got out of high school, and so there was like programs that like for exactly that same reason.
Like after school programs, you would hang out because your mom was at work,
or during the summer,
and they had a lot of art and activities and stuff.
Exactly, yeah, and.
Which program were you in?
Well, I was in there's one called Youth Empowerment Program, which is right there on Vermont and like south of Adams. I can't remember the street, but they always saw that I had a sketchbook with me and that I was constantly drawing and. I remember the director asked if I ever painted murals, and I just say yeah. So it was before the high school mural, and I was like yeah. I mean, like I kind of knew what it consisted of, but I never really actually done one.
You never got up like with graffiti artists?
Well, yeah. So so I always did that. I was always into graffiti and through my skating friends and. Like that was something that we would do, but we were never like part of a crew. We were just
but you did do wall art.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, but it wasn't like
not like a mural.
Like a production. Yeah.
With design elements and everything.
Yeah. So they're like the first one. I was 15, and they gave me like my first real job, and then they were like, I think the director kind of had a feeling that I like might need like some kind of guidance, and so he invited like this artist Alex, who goes by Deuce, who's a legend in LA, like graffiti legend, and yeah, but he's also an amazing artist, and so he came and kind of like helped out, but he was like, oh, you got this, but I had already met like another mentor, Create, who's like another graffiti artist, and so I was already kind of like knowing, like I already knew people in graffiti and graffiti artists, and but I think I was too young, so they were like I never like was allowed to kind of paint. I could I would go and just see them, but they would never, and I didn't have any paint, so. Yeah. No, and also they're not gonna have like a kid, like maybe I'll fill in or something like that, but I wasn't able to like actually like flex, like I think the way that I thought that I knew how to, but yeah, and so so then that became like my first mural, and then I did the one in those high schools, but those are paintbrush, and then some of them were spray paint.
And after high school, did you do any kind of education, any kind of trade school or anything?
Yeah. So because of that Disney scholarship, I mean, I also got accepted to Art Center, but I didn't go because it was like way too expensive, and I don't know. It was just too expensive, and I think
it's scary to be like, I'll do it, $100,000, and you're like a kid from the neighborhood.
Well, my mom, call sign a loan or whatever, and it's like, I don't know, it just didn't seem realistic, to us, and I don't know, I was a little bummed out, but I think ultimately things kind of happen for a reason, and
or ultimately, like a plant finds its way to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're still gonna grow regardless.
Yeah. And so I went to San Francisco right after high school, and just to kind of because like I said, I had already painted a couple of murals and got paid for it, so I went to San Francisco with some money, and so I stayed there for a few months, pretty much just skating in San Francisco every day.
You wanted to have like an adult experience.
Yeah,
I imagine.
And I was with a friend, and she, a high school friend, and she got accepted to Berkeley, right out of high school, and so she was living in Oakland, and so but I would take the BART to SF and go visit the art schools in San Francisco just to kind of get a vibe, and just to see maybe if eventually I'll get back into school, and if that was like a thing I wanted to do, and eventually I just came back to LA and kind of continued to paint with a bunch of other artists. And
did you do any art while you were up in the Bay Area?
Nah.
Just your own sketchbooks?
Yeah, just I had a sketchbook and maybe a couple little tags, but it wasn't. Yeah, I pretty much, like I said, it was pretty much just like a skate vacation. I was just skating every day because there was a bunch of legendary spots there, and that I would always see in skate videos that I never been to, and so I would find my way to them, and I was by myself too. I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And,
what year was it?
This was 2000 or 99 or 2000, I think.
Good times.
Yeah. But then I eventually came back and I kept painting, and I met this homie. Well, I met this dude that's part of graffiti. He goes by NATO, and at the time he was I'm sure he's still a graphic designer, but he's a graphic designer, and I never knew anybody that had a job in graphic design at that point, and
now everybody has a job in graphic design.
Well, but he's also an artist. And he's like, yo, you wanna, I could probably get you some work, because I think he already saw a bunch of potential in me. And he worked out right here in downtown, off of Broadway and Jefferson, not too far from there. And I was like, well, I don't live too far, if I can bike right there, and so I went there, and then I just started working there doing graphics, but I had no idea how to work the computer, and so that's pretty much where I learned Photoshop, Illustrator, and I would ask him the same question all the time, wait, what's a command to resize things? And because he had a command, he's all commands, so I learned all of that from him.
All of the shortcuts.
Yeah, exactly. And it was also for the first time I ever used a tablet, and
wait, at this time, because I remember when I first learned it, I had to. If I wanted to learn something, I had to flip through a book. It wasn't even you couldn't find it anywhere online yet. It was all in a book, and you'd find it Did you have that, or were you?
No, like I said, luckily, like I had my friend Nato,
He knew everything, yeah.
Yeah, he
But
was
was it
already
online already? Like, because now if I need something, I just YouTube it, put them, and I get the instructions real quick. It was just him helping you.
Yeah, like at that time, I don't really remember using the internet much.
Yeah.
I mean, it existed, but
it wasn't that deep. Yeah.
Yeah, like to me, like I'm like like I said, like I came from just like drawing on my book on paper or on canvas, and then jumping into the computer, and so then that became kind of my schooling. Like just the cool thing was that I got paid and
on the job training.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What kind of design were you doing? Like brochures or like?
No, so I worked for a company that had licenses for different brands. So like we would do like so I don't know if you remember
create graphics.
Yeah, like so like for t-shirts.
T-shirts.
But I don't know if you remember back in the days, like there'll be like Corona shirts.
Yeah.
Like and there'll be like a girl on the beach.
Yeah.
So I would like digitally airbrush those things, like those
cool.
illustrations. And so there was like some for like Mickey's or like GMC, like so like like or like Escalade or whatever, like different like licenses. So we would in Photoshop, like I would take a photograph of the image and then distort it and kind of make it look like kind of like kind of a little more animated, and then re-airbrush all that like digitally and so then those were like the shirts that kind of became those things, like Mickey's with the bee and then a bottle all twisted, but all airbrushed. So it was really popular like around like the early 2000s. So like that was like I would do those graphics, and because I like at that point I was like pretty much already at that level, like illustrating and drawing and. But I think I skipped like a big part of where like I learned a lot of that was from like the Disney program. So because of that, I was allowed to also go to Imagineering, and there was this master instructor named Steve Houston, and he would just break down the anatomy and but also like really like make it easy for I think for anyone to understand how to see things.
Yeah, he like demystify it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, make it simple to grasp. Yeah.
And but yeah, that I give a lot of credit to that. I feel like I learned a lot from that. Like.
Do you remember the name of the program?
Well, yeah. The name of the program was the Rhyming program, but I don't know if it's still around. But because of that program, they were like, you could go to Imagineering and go, and so then I would go there, and even the employees would, I think they would like trip out on like how skillful I was. Like I said, like I kind of like I had already started like probably like at 8 trying to like understand it and maybe getting a little good at it, and so when I was there I picked it up right away, especially with Steve Houston. He was like made it easy to understand, and I mean it's till this day I still love drawing figures from life or just in general just things from life. I think I keep it in my practice all the time, and I never think that I'm ever gonna stop like understanding the way I see things and how to like exactly like how to understand what I'm looking at and try to convince like a person that's looking at like some of my pieces, like try to convince them that they're looking at exactly what I'm looking at, like in time and space, But yeah, to go back to like the graphic, so that's pretty much what I did for years, and then eventually getting into the skate industry and doing graphics for skate companies, and then
so you did some boards?
Yeah, designed boards, and then eventually I worked for like a big skate brand doing graphics, and I did that for years, and then just moved on with different companies. I mean, to this day I still do graphic work for different brands. And it's cool because it's like I still get to draw and and illustrate and make good money, doing that, and
those pay the rent.
Yeah, exactly. I was able to live in Mexico it's been the second time that I lived in Mexico, and and still doing graphic work, and one graphic like pays like really well, and so then I could live like
cover your rent for
Yeah.
for half a year.
yeah,
and shit.
still pay my bills here and then pay like the bills there, and
Wow.
but like things aren't really that expensive in Mexico, especially where I was at, unless you're like going out and partying and like all crazy, but like that wasn't necessarily the case, but yeah, that was kind of like a little part of
How many years did you do that? Like live in Mexico and work?
Well, because I don't have a dual citizenship, so I only stayed to what I'm allowed to with 6 months.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but in that time, like I'm like exploring and I'm just just moving around.
That's a good amount of time to like take to be like when people go for like a week or 2 weeks, I'm like that just feels like you just unpacked. I mean it's nice, I'm sure.
It's just
but like to go for 6 months, at least you get to feel like the culture and the people in a different way. And that's cool.
So that was like a kind of like I said, like a big part of my schooling, and doing like I said, doing graphic work, and then like in like 2018 is like when I got back into. I mean, I would always paint and draw, but I never like kind of like put a lot of focus into it.
Yeah.
Like I would just work a graphic design job every day, like a regular job, and then go home. I would like go to the bars with the homies, go play pool, and it just kind of maybe I just got too comfortable with that lifestyle, and so it was really difficult for me to get back into art because I was so conditioned to getting assignments and like work on this
to be
and
a
work on
workhorse.
that, and so when it came to me getting back into painting and like I had no idea what to do. Like I was like I'm stuck. Like I'm like I really was stuck, and I'm like, well, I'm just not gonna paint like a portrait because I just like painting portraits. Like I think it has to be like there has to be more meaning to this, and that's when I started actually going to Mexico. I mean, I've always visited Mexico because of like other like friends that are like, oh, like let's go to Guadalajara or let's go, but I would never go to go do art. I would just go just to go see and go
party.
Just to kind of go like get to know the city. But but I was not like the person that I am now, where I'm like bringing a book, I'm gonna draw this, I'm gonna paint this, and so it wasn't that, and so it wasn't until like I was no longer in the office and I was just like learning to explore Mexico and like on my own, and so at that time like I had already like I had saved up a good amount of money, so like I didn't work for anybody for 2 years. I was just like literally just living off like my shit.
Damn.
And just like going to Mexico or getting like a hotel, inviting friends, like my friends from out here, like yo, like I got you guys.
Let's go,
fuck it, and partying and painting.
That's fun, dude. That's fun.
Yeah, but and so during that process, I met this a creator. He does like events and like parties and ensenada. And actually, I got introduced to him by like the friend that I always travel to Guadalajara or whatever. And he was like, yo, you gotta meet my friend Eric. He does like events and he does like the beer festival. He has his own stage. And so when I met him, he was doing a Day of the Dead party. And he's like, yeah, I do this. I work for this company. I've done big installations. Like I know, like I've done like sculptures for like that eventually became like inflatables. And so like at this point, I kind of had already like a good understanding of like on how to create environments. Because of like I designed for like a store. I designed like furniture. I did things that I would never imagine doing because of just like the company that gave me like creative freedom, and so like like I'll maybe like, well, what do you got room for? And I did a mural and I did like this map projection, and this is the first time I ever done that, and because like I'm into music, so I can kind of create keep a rhythm, especially when I'm listening to like a beat, like I could follow it.
Yeah.
And so when I did the map projection, I was like following like the rhythm, and he was like blown away. He's like, what? Like, you've done this before? And I was like, nah, but I mean, I know art and I know like a little bit of music, you know.
Magnet program here.
Yeah. And he was just like he was like, oh, like just kind of like kept inviting me to do events.
Nice.
And he would, and obviously paying me, and he would host me, and even like because like I said, it's in Ensenada, so he would invite me to work on projects with different restaurants or vineyards in El Valle de Guadalupe.
Nice.
And he would literally just be like, oh, Andy, you gotta rest a little bit, like, you know, you working too hard. And he would give me like hotel, like, you know, rooms in the Valle de Guadalupe, all paid for, like food all paid for, like everything. And I was like, dude, this is sick. But and so in the meantime, I would like just kind of walk in the neighborhood or like meet people, and I'm like, hey, you let me paint like a mural here, and
Really?
and they would be like, yeah, you know, and like I'll paint like an adobe walls, and
Oh, nice.
but I'll like do like something that I could crank out like in like maybe like 3 hours or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so then I would just do that, like, and especially like I started painting these roses, these blue roses for whatever reason. I don't know. I just kind of at the time for me, I just maybe seen one and I was like, oh, this looks cool. But I would paint them sideways, so to kind of almost like create like a piece, you know, like a graffiti piece. But they were like these big roses with like these huge stems and like the leaves and the thorns and.
Just one long stem rose across a wall. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so it just became like this cool thing, you know, and so then I would just like paint them out there, and then eventually I painted a few here in South Central. But yeah, you know, so then I just kind of started getting back into like painting murals again, like big scale. And I've one of my good friend, Atlas, he's always kind of been like a big, you know, supporter of like, you know, like my art and like who I am, and he always invites me like, yo, come paint a wall, and like I got tons of paint, you know, like, yeah, you can, I got you. And so I would, and I remember just feeling uncomfortable because I was like so rusty at that point. Like I said, I was just in an office sitting down, like doing graphic work, like, you know, like soft ass fucking hands, you know? And so I got back into like painting walls, and then eventually like Michelle, Mr. Baby, like invited me to be part of like this project in Chula Vista to paint a big mural. And I remember like at that point I was like, I was like I went, I did it, but it was really big, and I think that's when like I think other people saw like how I can like the level of like
which mural was that?
It's like this. I painted like I did a portrait of my hands holding a spray can that was like kind of like blooming like leaves, and I think like they all kind of had like a little theme, and I think mine was like urban or graffiti or something. But I did the hands like to me I think I did them pretty all right at that time, you know. Let me turn this.
Let's talk a little bit about like the things that you choose to paint. Like in some of your pieces that you have on IG, like you paint a lot of like Mexican symbology or Mexican ancestral pieces, you know, stuff like that.
So like I said earlier, that it took me like a while to kind of like figure out exactly what I wanted to paint, and so this was where I was leading up to, like, you know, like me going to Mexico, and with that friend, his name is Eric, who you know, like who did these events, and he like really believed in me, and so he would say things like man, Andy, man, you gotta start traveling more, man. And I was like, I don't know, I knew what he meant. And he's like, man, you gotta do a LoveYoDreams Oaxaca tour, you know, Tierra de Brujos. He would always say it. I would like kind of like smile, smirk at it, and he's like, let's do one. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm down. But I just said that, you know, I just kind of like didn't expect much for it. And then like, I think a day later or 2 days after, he's like, all right, this is your flight. This is it. And I was like, oh shit. Like, and he got like the Airbnb and everything. And
shit.
And I was like, well, what the fuck am I going to do with her, you know? Like, and I know.
He didn't even like ask you for your calendar dates or nothing. Just like, vámonos.
Yeah. I mean, he knew that I didn't have to go into an office or anything, you know, and so, and yeah, I fucking, I went, and it kind of worked out perfectly because, so I'm like part of my graffiti crew, like we did like this big piece in TJ, and
who's the crew if you don't mind me saying?
GEW, you know, God's at Work, and yeah, so we did this big piece and TJ, and then I had like, the next day was my flight to Oaxaca and from TJ, so I kind of like there's just everything just worked out, like just the timing of everything, and yeah, I got to Oaxaca and I got like, off the plane. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know where the fuck I'm going. And there's like these little, like, those little buses, those suburban buses, they call them. And I just gave, I like, oh, this is where I'm going, my address, you know, and then Central, you know. And he's like, yeah, it's I don't know, 600 pesos, I forgot. And yeah, he took me there, and then I was waiting for the Airbnb host, and I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do here? Like, he's like, I mean, at that point it was like,
wait, he sent you by yourself?
Yeah, by myself.
Oh, I thought he was gonna go with you.
He
eventually showed up.
Yeah, like a week after.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so
that's funny because you just pull up with like no plan, nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So, but it's like, but I have like I think I was like at that point I was like, okay, well I'm here, I need to do something.
Yeah.
And I brought like, I have like this portfolio case that's where I brought blank sheets of Bristol paper. So like I had no art. Like I was like, okay, well everything I want to do, I want to just make it there.
Yeah,
you know?
start making
And yeah, for like the first 3 days I didn't go out. I was like, maybe I'll go buy food, and then and just bring it back to Airbnb and make myself some food. Like I wasn't even really exploring the city at that point. I was just like, I just need to just do some work and see where it goes, just so I could show some, you know, people. And eventually, I started like, I went to this bar that's really close to where my Airbnb was, like literally in the same street. It's called La Chalaparta. It's like really popular. Like they do a bunch of shows there. It's like the party club, you know, like it's super known. And eventually I met a friend of mine there who became a friend. This person, Yvonne, who's a photographer and also photography teacher, and she started kind of directing me to like people and galleries, and and eventually like I like within like a little bit of time I kind of already set up like an art show, and by that time like Erica had already gone there, and he was like, oh shit, damn, you already cranked all these out. And so I did like a lot of like masks, you know, like Mesoamerican masks that were I think kind of like surrounded like from like by barbed wire, and like I think it was like me kind of like you know, breaking out of like this, you know, like, or like reconnecting with my roots, but like breaking out of like the things that I knew that I learned here in America, you know, and also like, you know, like in high school, they're like they don't really give you like you know, like Latinos or people of color like too many interests of who they are, you know, like it's always like these presidents that are like king, like, you know, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just like nobody's interested, or I'm not interested in that, you know, but when I started kind of learning about like just the stories about like these gods, and I was like, whoa, like this is like a whole other world that I don't know, that's super captivating, and
you identify with
exactly.
immediately, like you feel it.
And you know,
it's important, man.
Yeah, and slowly by slowly I started meeting just different people, you know, like professors, like other artists, and just like people, just like musicians, like literally like anybody and everybody, like poets, singers, and Oaxaca is like it's full of artists, like amazing artists, and I think they also welcomed me as a Chicano, and so like I kind of became like I created friends pretty easily because I mean at that point I'm like my Spanish was like I mean in LA it's good but out there it sucked, you know, and but eventually, you know, like I mean after like being there for so long you know you develop
Practice.
it. Yeah, but so I did the Oaxacan tour. I mean, well, I did that project like that just literally just bloomed from nowhere because of my friend Eric, and he had no idea either. And I mean, I think I did a lot of the footwork, you know, like in the city, but then he was like, "Man, let's go to the beach," and I was like, and I was like, all right, fuck it, let's go to the beach. And then he ended up organizing like this party and then got a couple of DJs. And so with all the pieces, because I did sell like a couple of pieces at the opening, it was just kind of crazy, you know? I was like, what? I don't know anybody here. And
That's crazy.
Yeah, you know, and like first like 3 hours, like a piece, like this couple visiting from Puebla comes, and I'm like, oh, take that, you know, and I did this chapulín, like about this big, and on a paper like pretty big, and my friend, I remember my friend Eric was like, dude, like what the hell is this? Like nobody's gonna want this, and it was like the first one that sold, you know. And
just a giant.
So he was like, I'm never gonna question you again, and that's really funny because it was this chapulín that eventually I designed into like a graphic, like a line work, and then a couple of us got it tattooed.
Oh, nice.
So it just kind of became like the lucky chapulín, you know. Yeah. And like that brings like, you know, good luck. So when you see a chapulín, it's like, oh, like, you know, something good is coming, and it just kind of like also like added, I think, to like just the magic that just Oaxaca has and just in general, and
they eat a lot of those chapulines.
Yeah. And but yeah, we went to the beach, and so some of the pieces that I had that were left over from the show, like some did so, but we had to ship them. But we were like, well, let's take them to Puerto, and for this party, and so we like hung them, like so we got this like a abandoned. It wasn't abandoned because obviously somebody owned it, but it was like this deconstructed or broken down kind of like house, adobe house that had like maybe I think like two walls that kind of made an L, and there was like a big long wall, so we hung some of the canvases there, but also painted like this huge chapulín there, and it was just like this party.
Do you have pictures of all that?
Yeah. Like
really cool.
like because Eric, he's like had a videographer come, and so he's like documenting everything. And
dude, what does Eric do? What's his position? He just makes things happen.
Yeah. You know, I think he just jumps the gun and be like, okay, we'll see. You know. Yeah. And but yeah, he owns a bar in Ensenada.
Okay.
It's called La Capilla. And he brings like, you know, like different different artists from different areas of the world, like. And you know, he has a good taste in music, and so like a good sense of like, you know, like like music, you know, and
I want to jump into something else real quick, just because we have like 10 minutes left, but tell me like what you're doing now, and tell me about your painting practice now, and are you trying to get into galleries here in LA or you know, and I think you recently painted a mural somewhere too, right?
Yeah, I just did a mural with Branded Arts, and they have like different artists like that are part of like that program. So they do like schools, or I don't know, like I'm mostly seeing schools, but yeah, different artists. And so I was one of the artists this year, and I did that like recently, and I also did like a painting for the Miguel Contreras Foundation too, and but it's like it's kind of crazy because every once in a while I do get invited to shows, but I actually sell paintings like just on my Instagram, or like people just holler at me and they're like, for example, this one that I have right here, this another DJ artist, he commissioned me this painting, but based on like another painting that I did that I have on my Instagram. He's like, I want something like this.
Yeah, the one that's lying back with the stars in the back behind it.
Yeah. It's like a. Yeah, exactly. There's like a little bag, like a little Aztec sculpture of it's like a little face, you know. But And so yeah, you know, and it's cool because he gives me like a lot of creative freedom. But I mean, I am working on paintings and I'm kind of like all over, you know, like I like painting from live and I like doing paintings that are a little more technical and I also like to be loose. But yeah, like my idea, like so I have a friend Arturo Mejia who's also an artist and he has a space called Lohum Studio in Boyle Heights. And he's like, yeah, like, you know, he had a group show recently, like that was really cool, you know, but not too many people know about it. So I think maybe like a lot of the current galleries, you know, like kind of just, I feel like they're set on their program, and I think that's just for me. It just feels like that's gonna be it for the rest of their life. But I mean, there's galleries that I definitely, you know, like look at and admire it. And I'm like, oh man, like I love this gallery because they're, you know, like the work is always like changes and it's kind of like almost like in the wheelhouse of like the things that I like, you know, to paint and but my idea is to do a show at the end of the year that's just pretty much like a DIY show. And also just, you know, like, cause I think it doesn't necessarily, I don't have necessarily that pressure of kind of having a, I don't know, I just don't think I have a pressure at all. So I think the paintings that I'll do or that I've been working on like tend to be kind of like done with like a comfort pace, you know, and
exactly what you want.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not necessarily like held back by like a timeline or something
or a certain theme or
exactly. And I mean, obviously, I would want it to be cohesive too, and but I think I like that I don't have that pressure, you know. And I think it's just like also kind of nice to kind of not have that because then you could tell it like comes from love, you know. Like it's like maybe like how people cook, you know, like I mean, there might be people that will rush a meal, but if you're working at a restaurant or, you know, but if you're like making food for your family or yourself, like you get, you know, it comes from like a space, like a place where that's like love. And so that's exactly what I want to do with like, what I've been doing with my pieces, you know?
Yeah, it seems like you work in that kind of, like I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'll be where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm also pretty like, I mean, I think because of my work, you know, like I learned to kind of like be disciplined, and I'm always like painting and drawing like every day, you know, like at least like, you know, like I mean, I was working on a computer before you got here, like working on graphic, you know, like Illustrator graphics that are more like logo driven and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna rest my eyes and work on like this painting, you know, for a little bit.
That's resting your eyes?
Well, I mean, from like the monitor.
From the monitor, I guess. That's cool.
Yeah, but or so like, you know, like when I'm just like, okay, I just need a break just from like visuals, and like then I tap into like sound, you know, and I'm just like I like just making beats and mangling sound, distorting sound, and then I nerd out on that too. But it's always like kind of like this. I think like this creativeness that's constantly just like happening in my mind, you know, and
always making something.
And just visualizing like, you know, like the sounds too, and maybe like some of like these stuttering like steps in like the music that I do or the distortion, like I'll see it in a painting and I'll be like, oh, like I want to do that this way and create like maybe an echo or warp this way because I think I heard this in the sound and I think it'll make sense to do it here, you know. And so like also painting and having like a sound that's kind of related to like a certain painting or you know, like it's I think it's like always part of my mind, you know?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to like make sure you put out there?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, you know, if you're an artist or whatever, or like whatever craft, like, you know, like don't be discouraged from like you know, like seeing what other people do, and then you feeling like that you're not worth that, you know, because I think like I think all of us are, you know, and it's just, you know, like it's that moment that you kind of just keep going and keep doing your things that are like you'll find those answers, or like the things like that you need, those jewels. And for example, like somebody like me that didn't go to school, you know, like I having to learn that all by myself, and I'm not gonna go like cry to myself and tell myself that like, oh, like I'm not worthy of success because I didn't get to go here or whatever, you know. But all the research that I've been doing has just been on my own, because like it's a big interest of mine, and that's what it is, you know. Like if you're interested in something, like go look it up and find out what it is, and yeah, and you know, and see if you're interested in it or not, you know. And but I'm also a person that like likes to, I think because of my graphic background, like I don't want to be pigeonholed to a certain way of painting. Like I love it all, to be honest, and in every medium too. Like I like working with oils, with like acrylics, with gouache, with oil pastels, with soft pastels, with like lino cuts, you know, and just everything, and anything, even sculptures, you know, like have been something that I'm new to. And like same thing like as the mural that I got when I was a kid, that first mural, like they're like, do you paint murals? I was like, yeah. I got a job to do like this sculpture for this bar, and they were like, oh yeah, we want a big like a life-size Olmec head. And I was like, nah, let me just paint one, you know, because I think I just kind of like wanted to be easier, you know, like I don't know, but he was like, could you do it? And I was like, yeah, but I think it'll take too long or something, you know. And he's like, no, but we really want a sculpture. And so then I was like, all right, let's do it, you know. And just like the little things that I seen, you know, like I like how to map out, like because I literally chiseled it out of blocks. And
blocks of what?
Styrofoam.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay, I could do this, you know, and I did, you know, and it kind of like opened up like another kind of interest of mine, where I was like, oh yeah, like I could do this too, you know, and you know, eventually, you know, like I would like to like, you know, get there and you know, and go to Mexico and like work with like volcanic rock and you know, and get to that level,
that'd be
right?
beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Well, I think we've talked for an hour, and you've said a lot, but also I think there's so much more to learn about you. You've had a really interesting route to where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's been like, you know, up and down, you know, just like anybody else, you know, and I think it's like just kind of powering through those things, and also kind of having like a sense of faith, you know, in yourself and people, you know, and just the process just in general.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, brother. And maybe in the future we'll get you back here again.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Gracias.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Sounds really cool.